produces, Carmen. Let's understand that.
They only care about whether they can mess with our genes more efficiently. And it turns out that the molecule melanin, actually, you know, when we mess with genetics and stuff, one of the ways in which we can do it is to use things like ultraviolet light to actually splice the genes in the cells and actually alter the genetics or to get...
Pause. Now, ultraviolet light, this goes back to CRISPR or Cas9. Ultraviolet light actually pierces the gene and allows you to splice the gene. For example, this is how you got the monkey to mix with the mouse. The mouse is mixed with the fruit fly. It allows you to pierce this gene because they don't possess what you call melanin. They don't possess what you call neuromelanin. You see, these are spiritual beings that we have created on the planet, but they don't possess neuromelanin. So you can alter their genetic makeup. You can take genes from them, take genes from them, take genes. You can't take genes from us and put it in another organism and create another one of us and say we got animal DNA. That's virtually impossible, because when they go to use the ultraviolet light to splice our DNA and our cells are coated with melanin, all we do is eat the ultraviolet light, just like the Incredible Hulk. If you ever noticed the Incredible Hulk, whenever the Incredible Hulk got shot or an explosion happened to him, he got bigger, he got stronger each and every time. So melanin is a resistance, you understand, to anything that tries to harm it. It ain't gonna do nothing but take it. Matter of fact, if you really want to use something, how about Black Panther? Remember when the sister upgraded his suit and you punched the suit and then absorbed it? She said, whatever happens to the suit, whatever somebody hits you or whatever the case may be, you're going to absorb it. And what's going to happen when you give it back to them? You're going to give it back to them 10 times stronger than what they did to you. So if someone kicked you, you absorb that. And when you kicked them back, not only did you have their force, but you had your force. It was 10 times stronger. So this is what melanin is. So let me finish playing this.
Things we put in to actually take, so that we can almost microsurgically implant them in the cells.
Hit that like button.
If these cells have got a lot of melanin in them, it's a dark pigment, it tends to absorb that light and diffract it and turn it into vibrations, etc. And then the light just doesn't get where it's really supposed to go. And faster if deliberately put in there.
Right. But there is a special, do you want to explain the special about melanin and how it protects the cell, the DNA inside the nucleus? That's very important.
Part of the reason you can't do these experiments, where there's a lot of melanin around, the melanin actually in a lot of people, in Black people, it's actually spread out through the skin. It spreads out through the cells and covers everything from the actions of the ultraviolet light.
There's no doubt in people with higher melanin, natural higher melanin, that it's far more likely that melanin will be coating the nucleus, the cell wall of the nucleus of the DNA. Now, the point about that is that ultraviolet light, which is often used to splice DNA, is blocked by that melanin. It absorbs it. It doesn't allow it in to interfere with the DNA. And it could well be, and this is Nigel's thesis, that this was a blocker for them when they were trying to genetically alter the species. And therefore, when maybe just out of random mutation, something like an albino came along, they discovered, wow, we can get straight in.
Right.
And it may well be that the paler skinned nation, people on the earth, maybe had that pale skin because of this genetic experimentation to make things easier for them to work on human DNA. And in fact, Professor Steve Jones argues that this thing about vitamin D being, paler skin being there to allow vitamin D to be absorbed and so on, all these theories about why pale skin happened in the first place, he believes it's not an adequate explanation. There is no real explanation or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
Yeah, because I think if
dark skin is always an advantage in every circumstance.
Right. Because most people would just automatically assume, well, they went to live in the north where there's less sun,
yes,
so therefore their skin changed colour. Yeah, but that's not the case.
According to Professor Steve Jones, an eminent professor of biology, that is absolute nonsense.
Right. Okay.
Vitamin D being paler skin being there to allow vitamin D to be absorbed and so on, all these theories about why pale skin happened in the first place, he believes it's not an adequate explanation. There is no real explanation or justification for the need for pale skin at all.
Yeah, because I think if
dark skin is always an advantage in every circumstance.
Right. Because most people would just automatically assume, well, they went to live in the north where there's less sun,
Yes.
so therefore their skin changed colour. Yeah, but that's not
No,
the case.
according to Professor Steve Jones, an eminent professor of biology, that is absolute nonsense.
Right. Okay.
There's just no reason at all for pale skin.
You would
Right.
want to absorb more
Yeah.
light, and I mean, why did we lose hair if we came to a colder climate, etc.
Yeah.
So obviously, something's wrong with that idea.
Right. All right. And Nigel contends that the white races, the northern European races, have probably had the most interference from this outside entity called the grey alien.
Yeah, and he doesn't say that. It's very important to say he doesn't say that from the point of view of a kind of reverse racism.
Right.
It's just he's letting us know that, right, that's there. You may need to do something about it,
Right.
and maybe suggesting ways that we could do something about it. And if you look at the record of the European nations throughout history, in terms of colonialism, imperialism, and what the havoc they've wreaked on the
makes
world,
that point.
it makes the point,
That
really.
it's the blue-eyed white races that have got
Yeah.
their finger on the nuclear. Well, I mean, what about China? Because he mentions the Chinese as well, doesn't he? He says that they've had significant intervention. Am I right there?
That's right. Yes, there's been interception all across the board. They found ways of doing it, but the most efficient way to do it is on cell nucleuses that aren't protected by the melanin shield.
Right.
That's just the most efficient, easiest way to do it.
You know what? I gotta play that again.
I'm Richard D. Hall.